Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, this is Jennie Walker, and welcome to Closet Conversations. Well, we have a big topic today. It's been a minute or two since I've had a podcast, and we're about to talk about why. I've completely changed my life. I've completely changed my business model. Everything is different, and so I have focused on all those changes, and now I'm ready to talk about it. So I made the bold step of closing my consignment shop in Pasadena and moving my consignment business and styling business and vintage Moschino archive into Los Angeles, in West Hollywood, and I'm sharing a space with a company called Clothed LA. Clothed LA focuses on celebrity styling and rental to stylists in the industry. And, so all that just happened. I mean, it just happened. Like, my muscles are still sore from moving things and working with the moving company, working with people to get everything packed up and, you know, having a clearance in my store and selling fixtures. And it's just been all of this stuff, including moving things into my apartment I wasn't sure what to do with, moving everything into the showroom, trying to figure it all out. And they had just moved in themselves. So we basically agreed to do this together. They moved in approximately 3 weeks before I did because I had to get the store handled. And here we are today, sharing a space in Hollywood. So, yeah. Now, why did I do this? Boy, there are a lot of reasons. There isn't just one reason, but this is a cumulative decision of all of the things that have been going on with me and my business pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, all the changes, me learning over the years the pluses and minuses of consignment and looking for a way to get on a more elevated side of reselling and vintage. And there have been so many times, I have to tell you, when I was, me and my cart going through the Goodwill, like a bad habit, like a smoking habit, like going in, not even just going in just to go, cruising through, numb to even what I'm doing. And there are a couple of times I sat there and I said, what am I doing here? I'm just like, what am I doing here? Is this how I want to spend my time? Is this how I want to spend my life in this environment, the physical environment of a Goodwill, the physical environment of a Goodwill bin, like the pure texture of it all. It's palpable, the bargain, the used items, like the whole situation is in and of itself a particular experience. And I have struggled for a very long time to say to myself, how in the world do I get on another side of this, the elevated side, a more interesting side? How do I do that? How do I do that? And, you know, all of this is an evolution of those thoughts of how to do that particular thing for me, because it's not enough and was not enough and will never be enough for me. This is me just being totally honest with you. And I am someone who's had a very close relationship with shopping, with clothing. As a child, my mother was shopping in Neiman Marcus with me. I had school clothes from Neiman Marcus. That is not a normal thing. And my mother was heavily into clothes. I've been around beautiful outfits and a beautiful mother, and all of this for my whole life. We solved all the world's problems out shopping. And it just became a thing for me. I've always been obsessed with Vogue, with the magazines, the images, the photos, the styling, just all of it, my whole life. And I didn't know there was such a thing as a career in fashion that was styling. I never even occurred to me to apply for a job at a Vogue magazine. These are not even thoughts in my head because, you know, my mother's like, go get a real job, and that wouldn't be one. So anyway, this is a byproduct of that. Now, the other part of this is coming to terms with all of the things that I despise about consignment. Now, there's so much I love about it, don't get me wrong. We will talk about that in a minute. But the things that have been eating away at me during COVID, taking over the business from my business partner, and the fear, I had literal fear of being in my store every day with people being constantly robbed in consignment shops, pretty much If you've heard of them, they've all been robbed multiple times. You basically get found out as a new store, you get targeted, and they keep robbing you until you put up enough security to not be robbed again. And my store, I will tell you now, was hit once and robbed twice. So we had one attempt that didn't get through and 2 actual break-ins, so 3 in my store. And after we put up the metal front gates, just like a pawn shop, we had to, gate it up, gate the skylight. We had to put metal in the back. And I still was in constant fear of being in that store, which I was mostly in by myself. Even when I had a business partner, pretty much was in there by myself, and I had part-time people working with me. And I had enough experiences that were literally terrifying, where I was like, I'm so glad that I'm okay and this person is gone. And you have to have a choice as a business owner. You are either open to the public or you are not. There's no making a decision, right? You have to make a decision. Am I open to the public? Am I by appointment only? If I'm by appointment only, what's the criteria? And so constantly kept the door locked, constantly was in fear being by myself, particularly during COVID when there was so much going on that was robbery, particularly when in LA a young woman was killed in a store she was in by herself when a homeless person with a knife came in and killed her. And it was the first thing I heard about on my chat, I'm in a group chat with all the LA consignment shop owners, and we're just all like, this is ridiculous. And the man was caught and found in Pasadena, where my store is, and arrested. So I kept asking myself, I kept saying, there's got to be a way I can do what I do and do what I love and not have to deal with the public, not have to deal with someone unwanted coming into my store. And I was just perplexed with what to do about that. I kept saying, I would say to myself, I'd rather be at home. I'd rather be in a warehouse, but I didn't want a warehouse. That's too big. I'm like, I'd rather just be at home, which kind of defeats so much of the purpose of a consignment shop, which is all about the clothing and into the public, right, who's buying it. This is different than, I'm an eBay seller that only sells online and that's all I've ever done. I'm talking about the business of having a storefront, a boutique open to the public, come in and buy. And so, I've been trying to figure out, how do I deal with that? There's got to be a way. There's just got to be a way, just like going through the Goodwill, standing there going, this has got to be another side to this, to being in my beautiful store. There's got to be another way to do this. And all of this has come together in this opportunity for me to share a showroom space. Now, this is really important. Can't believe I've never considered it. I can't believe I've never thought about it. But the showroom space solves a lot of problems, and we'll go into why. But I'm now in an environment that, from just the technical side of it, is safe. I don't have to worry about anybody coming in who's unwanted. You have to have an appointment. Our address isn't published. I mean, you've got to know us to be able to find us and have an invitation to come in. So that solves all of the fear problems. And I have felt a lot of things in the last month, but fear has not been one of them. It's mostly exhaustion. But that being afraid is gone. The fact that I can be around all of these beautiful clothes and be in an environment where people are coming in to put them into such amazing usage, because when you sell in a consignment shop, you don't know what the usage is for. I mean, I send things all over the world online. I mean, people come in all the time. They don't necessarily tell you who they are or why they're there or what the usage is. But in this environment, you get to know, and it's part of knowing what stylist took it out, what celebrity it was taken out to be presented to for a fitting, and ultimately if it get used, and all of that. And it's just a thrill and to see this new way to, like, I'm not only going to know when it happens, it's going to be quite exciting. And it is happening. It's been happening with my Moschino. It's been happening with the other vintage that I have that I own that is not Moschino. And it's getting on celebrities. So, for example, the biggest thing that happened, I haven't even done a podcast about it. I just never got around to it, but Julia Roberts wore my vintage Moschino Ace of Hearts suit on the Colbert Show. And that was just, I think it was back in March or April of this year. It was pretty extraordinary. I'm so happy. It was just a wonderful opportunity. Now, the person that I am in the space with, Jordan Grossman, who owns Clothes LA, she's a stylist. She was behind the scenes, and she basically made that happen in the way that she makes things happen. And my outfit was one of the items that was in the fitting for Ms. Roberts for the variety of things she needs to be fitted for, and it was chosen. So it was chosen by her stylist, Elizabeth Stewart, and it was selected for that. I mean, thrill a minute. I can't even tell you. So then we've had Paris Jackson, Michael Jackson's daughter. Her stylist came in and selected one of the vintage dresses, not one of the really old ones, but one of the current newer ones, I'd say in the last 5 years, a floral dress that she wore to a charity event. She went with her brother, and it was just fantastic to see that usage. Then another actress, Zoe Deutsch, wore the vintage Moschino Galaxy dress, again, was presented to her by her stylist in her fitting, found by Jordan, and presented to them for the purpose of a potential usage. And not only did it look amazing on her, but those photos got picked up by so many magazines, W, Women's Wear Daily, Vogue, Pop Sugar, just all these different places. And to see the things I'm talking about, you can go to my Instagram. So if you're not following, I'd love for you to follow me there at JennieGirl's Closet. And we are documenting, right, all this happening. We've had celebrity influencers, social media influencers, I can't even say it, social media influencers. Amy Song recently wore a total vintage outfit. It looks amazing to New York Fashion Week, which she promoted on her her Instagram, which we did as well on ours, as well as some other influencers who have been wearing the things and getting them out there. It's pretty amazing. So it's happening, and I know of many opportunities coming up where pieces have gone out and been selected for things that have not yet come up yet that I know is in the works, and this is just the beginning of what's happening. So as someone who owns the country's largest vintage Moschino collection, it is staggering to see what's come of that collection and the power of it. And Jordan Grossman found me on Instagram. She found me on Instagram. She reached out to me, said, hey, I know this sounds crazy, but I'd love to be able to represent your vintage Moschino, and through rental to the celebrity stylists who are out there. And I looked into that. We signed an agreement. It sounded great. And she delivered on every single thing that she said she would do about getting it out there, and the press that would follow on this happening. And not only my name, my personal name, JennieGirl's Closet, and the link to my Instagram has been in a number of major publications related to stories where they've talked about what the person was wearing and where it came from. So just to see that is, wonderful. And it solves all the things that I wanted. I wanted to find a way to get on another elevated side of it, and learning about the rental business is just fascinating. Like, it's more than rental. I mean, they buy a lot of times. Like, there's so much more behind it. But basically being able to provide unique wardrobe to stylists, and having this vintage Moschino collection, having this rare vintage that was created out of my personal wardrobe of 16 years in New York, created my vintage wardrobe that is now for rent. All of the Versace and Dolce & Gabbana and Fendi, or whatever it was I wore for 16 years, Donna Karan, all kinds of great things, is now available for rent through clothes rental, and which is a really interesting thing to do with these clothes that I've held on to all these years. And so here we have it. I mean, I'm on a completely different side of this, and outside my utter exhaustion, which you can probably hear in my voice now because it's been nonstop. Outside of that, it is absolutely feels like the right next move for me. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to the Goodwill bins or the Goodwill or anything like that. It means it is now the lowest on my list. If someone wants me, I'll go. But, my focus is elsewhere. So now it becomes in my mind, okay, how do I find the most unique vintage that's out there? Because there's a lot of choices. So how do you become the go-to place, or at least the first place they look? I mean, there's a number of amazing places in LA to rent or purchase or come across incredible vintage. But how do you become the go-to place, the place they go first? Because they don't have a lot of time, these stylists. And how do you have things to fit their budgets, which could be quite small or quite large, depending on the project. So this is a really, really cool place to be for me. And, you know, I'm learning all about the rental side. And Jordan Grossman will be on a future podcast to talk all about styling, all about how stylists think. It is completely different than customers, how they think about their wardrobe and how their budgets are. And budgets are a big thing, because the whole point is that, you know, you can go in any store and not have a budget for everything that you see. And it's no different for stylists who are trying to get the most look great. They're trying to get the best look they can for their client on the money that they've been given in a budget. And how that all works, Jordan can talk about. Now, one of the things I did for consignment shop owners who are listening, and this is something new, I'm going to call it a new business model. I'll do a separate podcast on it. But since I was going into rental, I have to have the right to rent something that's not mine. And so I said, well, I have to build that into my contract and Axel in the future if they want to be part of the rental, because a couple of people heard I was doing rental, and the first thing out of their mouth was, well, I hope you're not going to rent anything of mine. You're not going to rent anything, are you? Literally, that's what they said to me. I said, no, don't worry about it. You know, I'm a trusted person, whatever. If I'm not going to rent your stuff. It is cumulatively for rent where it's rentable, and for sale where it isn't. So it's in the same environment. But what I did do for the future is I'm going to give people an opportunity to rent, because why not? It's just going to sit there for 3 months, 6 months, a year, especially when it's in a state where you've taken in thousands of pieces or hundreds of pieces. The person has passed, so you don't have the sensitivity to the item being rented that you do with people who are alive and well and concerned about their things. And so one of my consigners who had passed, and later her husband had brought me some of her things after she passed, because she, you know, had trusted us as a source. Well, we're back in touch to get the bulk of what's left, the bulk of her estate. And I presented to him the whole idea of, well, how do you feel about rental? I mean, you know, you could conceivably rent these Chanel suits and make a lot more money than if you sell one, a lot more money over time than if you just sell it outright. And it gives an opportunity for the person, their life, their style, their wardrobe to live on for years to come. And it really breathes new life into the clothes when you think about it and from an estate concept about this person, who they were, how they loved their clothes, and then the next person being able to see it. So imagine if you have an estate and it's someone, a relative of yours, and you learn later, well, celebrity X wore it, or TV movie X bought it, or this one over here rented it. So I did offer that, and they said yes. They thought it was a beautiful way to honor the memory of their late wife, and a beautiful way to, you know, put it out there. So we've done that, and I can tell you that the things that we took in, now that I look at them completely different now. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not under pressure to sell all this right now. Like, I can actually take a minute, start processing, it's all available for rental immediately. But now, a piece at a time, starting with the good stuff, I start pricing it and putting it out for sale, so that I have simultaneously offered both things to the person. So it could rent indefinitely, or as long as the contract allows that to happen, and get that rental income and just see how that goes. Of course, obviously we have the selling option as well, but this is just an exceptionally unique thing to offer now. And I would not be able to offer this if it weren't for clothes rentals. They're the ones with the rental expertise. They're the ones with the software. They are the ones with the system that is set up to do this, not me. So I am working my inventory into their system for rental. It goes through my inventory for selling per usual. So one thing that has changed is that for people who want to shop in store, I don't have that anymore. So anyone who knows me, who has shopped with me as a former customer, can make a private appointment. They'll get the address and can come in and shop with me, but no more shopping public, that I don't know. That is over with. So the shopping can be from and will be from stylists who present the items to their celebrity clients, stylists themselves, and obviously online. So it is it's a very different thing to do. It's a very different way to work, and so far so good. And I just couldn't be more excited about this change. And it's a bold move, and I am a risk taker. And part of being a risk taker, it's easy because, like you said, like no animals were hurt in the filming of this movie kind of thing. Like no one was hurt by this. I don't have pets, plants, not dating anyone, no children. Both parents are dead. I have 4 brothers and sisters, but a bunch of nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews. But the point is, because it's just me, I can take a risk like this, and it only affects me. And it has, in fact, affected me a lot. The emotional impact has just been so overwhelming. The emotion, the trauma behind closing the store. And when I sent out a notice to my newsletter people for the store, I basically said, my biggest fear was having to close out of failure. And my biggest hope is that something new I tried to keep me alive would take hold. And that is, that's me just saying it plain. And I did not want to close the store out of failure. People were like, you should close the store. You're treading water. You're not getting anywhere. And I had made all these changes that improved so much about the finances of the store, but still not enough to dig out of the deep, dark hole and all the rent I owe my landlord and things like that. But I kept resisting. I kept saying, it doesn't feel right. I said, what if I close my store, then what? What am I supposed to do? Like, I don't understand. Go into my apartment? I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And so I was struggling with the thought of closing the store without anywhere to go, closing it out of failure, closing it out of frustration, closing it out of defeat, whatever you want to call it. And I will tell you that the fact that I've been able to close it as a pivot point to bounce from that store into this celebrity world of styling and rental and selling and all of that is just, I can hardly believe it's true, but it is true, and that's what's happened, and that is a beautiful thing, because without that, I don't know how I would have coped with it. It was hard enough going to something positive. I can't even imagine closing it and having nowhere to go. So I was able to pivot. I was able to close that store. I lived through it. I lived to tell about it, which is what this podcast is doing. And that's the next chapter. And it's so exciting. It's a lot more exciting than I'm making it sound like right now. But if you go to my Instagram at JennieGirl's Closet, you will see what's been going on the last couple of months, which I have not talked about. And I think it's important to know, as much as I want to do a regular podcast, and we do plan to do a lot of podcasting at Clothes LA and get a lot of stylists on to talk about what they do. The reality is I don't earn my living on a podcast. And as far as those who can teach and those who can't teach, those who can do, well, those who are really busy, they don't do anything either. So yeah, and I know a lot of people, I'm not going to say a lot, but enough people contact me that tell me they listen to my podcast that I know that they're appreciated. And I really, really love hearing from people who have taken the time to listen to me carry on about what I'm going through, because I am struggling with all the things every other person is doing in reselling and consignment and vintage. And the consignment model is flawed. I'm just here to tell you, I don't like it one bit. There's a lot of freedom, and you cut out a lot of problems when you own your inventory outright, period. Like, You can do what you want when you want to do it. There's no pressure on anything to get it processed like from the outside. So all the pressures are internal. It gives you a lot more opportunity to rent it or to sell it at whatever margin you want. I mean, and, you know, the constant hoping that something great would come in, the having to constantly seek the next Chanel handbag. I mean, that's a lot of effort. That's a lot of stress. And to be able to sign and be, okay, let me get all the rental money I need to cover my overhead and certain amount of income. And now I can relax. I can take a minute. I can work on projects that are really exciting. And now going forward, when I work with estates or people want to consign, I can hold out for the very best that's out there. I can offer this rental option for people who've never considered it before, and take it from there. So that's what's happening with me, Jennie Walker, at JennieGirl's Closet and Walker Viden Luxury Consignment. I will be combining the businesses. I'm hoping to do it by the end of the year. My lawyer is encouraging me to combine them, not because they need to be combined, but because he says there's reasons from an accounting perspective to go ahead and create one entity, which I will probably do and take his advice, because every time I take his advice, it's good. And I'll change the name. Instead of I have JennieGirl LLC, I have Walker Viden LLC, and I'll become JennieGirl's Closet LLC, and that is the goal. So a lot going on with me, a lot of change, a lot of upgrade. Everything I'm doing feels elevated. It feels fun. I feel like I'm on the better side of reselling. And what I would say for people who have been slogging this out in reselling and finding themselves at times a little frustrated with the grind, and it is a grind, the slog, it is a slog, the overwhelming administrative part of this work, and the pluses and minuses of dealing with the public, I would say think about ways that you two can find another side of it and find ways to become more elevated in what you do, no matter what that looks like for you. It could be a neon sign in the back of your place where you do your podcast, your videos or YouTube videos. It could be your own podcast. It could be finding new ways to source or getting into consignment. It could be starting to rent. It could be offering your things for rent. Now, let me tell you this. I'm going to throw this out here because I talk about mind blown. Never heard of it. It realized what a silo I've been in. But Jordan Grossman, who owns Clothes LA, I found out that she's been renting her clothes for years. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, oh, yeah, I've been renting it for years. I'm like, 4 years? Yeah, for years, like 8 years. Never heard it. And she talked about the amount of rental income she's been able to earn over the years renting her stuff. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Now, you have to have stuff that's rentable. Though, mind you, I mean, you need like Vivienne Westwood bustiers and really cool, dresses and whatever. You need what's rentable. Moschino is very rentable, I've learned. But she's had an entire stream of income from renting from people you've never heard of. Like, she named these rental houses. I'm like, I have never heard of these people. I don't know anything about this. And I would say for the reselling community, why would we? Why would we know? But I'm here to tell you it's a thing. It's an actual thing. So I'm here with Jordan building a rental company, a rental house. It's more than me just offering my Moschino for sale. We are working together to build something extraordinary. So I'm learning all about an industry I have not really known existed. I learn something every day that blows my mind. And then, of course, I can bring to her my perspective as a shop owner, consignment owner, the things I've been through, and then she learns from that. And together we figure this out. But I'm here to tell you, if you're looking for another side of what you do, it's out there somewhere, and just keep thinking about it, keep looking at it, and keep asking yourself, how do I do this differently? How do I get on another side that might make me more satisfied? And just see what happens. Because I was able to do it, and I'm happy. And it's a big decision, and the one thing I did, and I'll tell you why I did this, is the owner of Spanx gave this wonderful interview that I saw on YouTube. When I first learned about her years ago, I was fascinated by her story. And I remember her story because I lived in Atlanta when she was cutting the bottoms off of pantyhose and it was making the news. And my brother works, I think at one time worked at a law firm where people he knew represented her. And so come up in conversation a couple of times. So I was fascinated to read her story and hear her story. And one of them, she said, one of the things that she did, and I'll never forget it until now. I'm trying to think of the point I was trying to make with her, with the Spanx lady, is I can't think of it. Oh, my God, I cannot think of my point from the Spanx woman. It was pretty fantastic, I'm here to tell you. But anyway, we know from her story that she was able to create something and carve out a market for herself that didn't exist before, and it was incredibly inspiring to see her create this multi-billion-dollar business by slogging it out, thinking of creative ways to get her product out there, et cetera, et cetera. Not the point I was trying to make. God, I'm going to think about it later. But anyway, there are a lot of parallels of people, trying to get on elevated sides of their business, and I hope that if that's something that you're looking to do, that you will do that, because it's happening for me. I'm a risk taker, and I cannot wait to tell you more about how this turns out. So I hope that you'll follow me and my journey on Instagram at JennieGirl's Closet. I hope that you will subscribe to this podcast if you've not done so. And I hope that you'll share this with people that you know in the reselling community. And I look forward to having you with me on a future episode. If you'd like to be in touch, please be in touch with me via Instagram at JennieGirl's Closet. And I look forward to having you with me on a future episode.